What's up guys, welcome to Munchkins Gaming, where we take your gaming to the next level. This is Munchkins logging in to bring you another Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia video. And welcome back to another video guide. In today's video, we are going to take a look at Rude's Lost Chapter Lufenia fight. So before we do start, as always, like and subscribe if you haven't already, because it does help this channel. And without further ado, let's start this video. Alright guys, so as always, we'll start this video off and how you're gonna deal with the Lufenia orb. Now this appears when the boss's HP reaches less than 80%. This does not disappear and they will get 10 Lufenia counters when they take a brave damage from an effect. So anything with a brave poison and something like that will work. There are quite a few characters that can do this. And I would actually recommend using just call abilities for this particular fight. For example, using Faris's call ability basically nets you a lot of turns for the Brave Poison, since she applies those debuffs as soon as she enters the field. So you basically get 2 calls, in total, and having those Brave Poison effects. And I think the main reason why I would actually recommend using a call ability for this particular Lufenia orb is it basically frees up your main team for something else. You don't really have to think about what your main team is going to be for the most part. Alright guys, now let's talk about how this fight works. Now, the fight basically will change the color of the boss's mask throughout the fight. Now, depending on what color they are, they get some different buffs. For example, in the white, they gain brave when they're acting. Yellow, basically they get an HP recovery, and then when they're red, they get both. Now, other things to really worry about is going to be all attacks. I would just highly recommend just expect a brave plus HP attack on those. They also gain shields when their HP falls below 70 and 30%. It's not a huge shield, but it is a shield nonetheless. The most annoying part is they apply this freeze-like debuff, I think it's called Curse, when their HP falls below 80 and 50%. And I do notice that every boss will basically apply this debuff whenever they fall on the HP threshold. So for example, one boss is below 80%, he will apply the curse debuff, and then maybe on your next turn you reduce the other boss's HP down below 80%, and they will apply the curse debuff again. So as much as possible, I think the best way to deal with this is obviously to try and make sure you drop their HP almost at the same time. Now, the final thing that I want to talk about is basically when they reach less than 50%. They will change their mask color to the next color basically every turn. So for example, if they're in white, they get the turn, they attack, they go to yellow. So things like that. It's going to be pretty tricky trying to get them back down, but of course we'll be talking about that in the next section anyway. I think the last thing is that I didn't put it here, but the boss are immune to the lock debuff, so you can't make sure they only attack one certain person. So tanking with like cover and stuff like that, if you are planning to bring a tank along, I think yeah, you will have to sort of use tanks that have cover like effects, or maybe shields and Warrior of Light that once again can do pretty well on this fight. Alright, now let's move on to how you're gonna deal with this fight. First of all, I already mentioned this, but you can just use call abilities to deal with the orb, and less worry for your main team. Debuff cleansing is something that you may want to consider, obviously because of that freeze-like debuff. Because if you don't, you're not going to be doing any HP damage. You can also prevent this debuff using Aerith or, for example, Lena, but Lena is kind of like kind of in the back leg at the moment. So Aerith is probably the best choice for this one. Also, the best way to deal with the mask changing colors is to just have rebreaks. So if you can rebreak the mask and get them back down to white, you won't have to worry about them gaining some HP when they're on yellow moss and on the red moss, which can be very annoying. And you may see in this video I had to deal with that, and because I didn't really bring a re-break. Alright, now let's talk about characters that you may want to bring. Now, I've already mentioned some characters in the earlier parts of this video, but you can pause the video right here to check out like a list of characters. Obviously, not every characters once again is listed down here, but you can probably use some characters that I haven't listed down here. The biggest thing here is obviously making sure you can deal with the Lufenia orb, and of course some re-breaks I think is really nice to have as well. Now, as for cold characters, I already mentioned Faris being one of the best ones. Shantotto is another good one to bring along, since she can also apply the poison debuff and can also paralyze the boss, making sure that you don't get broken. Obviously, all the other characters like Sephiroth, once again with the gold frame debuff. I mean, that does take some brave damage too, I believe, if I remember correctly. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments below, but I haven't used Sephiroth in a very long time. So these characters obviously going to help you clear this fight without having someone in your main team do the poisoning. Alright, now let's talk about party compositions, and of course the first one that I would suggest is the team that I went with Squall, Setzer, and Yuna. Faris, Shantotto, Kurosami for the call team, and Vaughn for the support, and Ramu for the summon. Now, the only reason I brought Squall along is because I haven't used Squall in a while, and I thought to myself, well, there are going to be 3 bosses, so splash damage is going to be great. It would be nice if I can get their HP down almost at the same time. Obviously it didn't really happen for the most part, but it still worked out well. Obviously I would have liked if it was a little bit quicker, but I think overall having this team is it made the fight alright-ish. I could have probably done something better. And speaking of better, this team might be better suited for you with Aerith, Tidus, and Yuna. Kurosami, Jack, and Faris for the cold team, Setzer for the support, and Ramu for the summon. Now, obviously, Tidus is going to be here for re-breaks, and having turn manipulation is just something that I actually forgot to mention earlier, is something that you may want to consider as well, since delay is not really ideal because you want to have the boss have a turn for the brave poison to take effect. So turn manipulation is probably the next best thing in making sure that the boss actually still has a turn while you take as much turns as you possibly can while counting how many orbs is left. So Tidus is great for this, and again, he does have that re-break which you may want in order for you to get rid of the red and yellow mask. And finally, the last team I have for you guys, of course, let's feature LUFE on this one with Vaughn and Yuna. Yuna is kind of replaceable with Aerith as well, depending on what you want to do. Setzer, Kurosami, and Jack for the cold team, and Setzer once again for the support, and Ramu for the summon. This time you don't need the cold team to do the poisoning because LUFE is going to be doing that for you, and you can throw back that curse debuff, and basically you effectively have a Setzer in your team. Obviously you still have Setzer in your call team just in case, but for the most part you can just throw that debuff away and you don't have to deal with it anymore. Alright guys, so we're finally at the end of this video, and of course I'll give you guys my final thoughts regarding this fight. Overall, the fight itself wasn't too difficult. I didn't even bring an optimal team, but I think people will have no problems regarding dealing with the Lufenia orb, since there's quite a few characters that can do it. And I just feel like the fight itself was a lot easier than the previous route event. Obviously we have a lot of tools in order to deal with other Lufenia orbs and how to deal with their mechanics and stuff like that. There's quite a few characters that have been added, especially Titus that can re-break now with his rework thanks to his jet shot. And so, you know, I think overall the fight itself is alright. I mean, I could probably say it could have been easier for me if I actually brought a optimal team. And yeah, I think it's alright-ish. And I mean, not having to deal with the Lufenia orb all that much, thanks to your call abilities to deal with them, is I think a plus. And I think it's a nice little break from, you know, some of the harder Lufenia fights that we've had earlier. So yeah, I mean, the last one that we had was the Shinryu one, which was called Extra Hard, but that fight can be cheesed if you have Warrior of Light, basically. So that, I think if you're gonna compare it, there's a way to deal with, you know, boss effectively. I mean, Shinryu is probably an easier department than this one, but nonetheless, I think I would just leave it at that, in the okay-ish department. So anyway guys, I think I'll leave the video right here. Please do remember to click like and subscribe if you haven't already. It does help the channel, and I would really appreciate it if you share this video to a fellow Dffoo player who's struggling to beat the Lufenia stages, and hopefully this video can help them and they can check out my other videos as well if, you know, they are interested in clearing some of the other Lufenia fights. Also follow me on Twitter and on Facebook at Munchkins Gaming. Leave down in the comments below if you think I missed anything, and of course your team and your strategy. Leave them all down in the comments below. This is Munchkins logging off. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next level.